Greetings, friends, crew member of our beloved, polluted, and unique spacecraft, which, since last time we met, has taken another turn about its imaginary axis and, of course, continues creating events in full development, many of which, as always in history, are protagonized by the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, and also are due to treason, which are, of course, protagonized by our brothers. But let's take a look at the international world to clear the air, so close to the traitors we are. And let's take a look about the other part of the world scenario, so that we can realize that there are places where other things happen as well. For instance, the situation that's always unstable in the Middle East, with Israel and Palestine, the expansion violating all the resolutions of the United Nations that were the ones creating Israel. Then I will correct something about this. It's not our mistake, but it comes from away, if we have time. As things are clear and we have taken a vertical position against the NATO, that's why Fidel used to call it the Ministry of Colonies of the United States. Here we can see who are the ones working for the United States. Let's take a look at the events in full development. And of course, that's why they have 7 American bases in Colombia, and they granted them their sovereign space. Not only having 7 bases, but also have granted them their air, land, and sea space. This is something different, but it's also very warm, as you can see. The events on screen now are fires that, according to Israel, are being provoked by kites of the Palestinian people. Fields are burning. This is a time of droughts. And we're going to see Daniel Ben-David from the National Jewish Fund is walking down the forest, who will be speaking about the events developing here. A simple kite, the ones that children used to play. They have different names elsewhere. They used to call it papagayo. That was one of the names that we used to have for it where I used to live. So this is a kite, and they often have fire as part of it, and then they are dropped and they set fire to these grounds. So Daniel Ben-David from the National Jewish Fund is walking down the forest, seeing one of the consequences due to this kite. This kite is sold for around 10 shekels. That's $2.8. Not over 3 or 4. It takes 10 minutes to do it, but the damage they cause. So take a look at this. So those kites have bombs, and they're dropped, and the consequences can be seen. The firefighters in a burned forest, and the damage is quite clear if we understand the moment of drought. This is, of course, not related to the cost of a kite, bringing this kind of elements that create fires. Someone who didn't want to provide his last name, wearing a mask, mentioned that in the Gaza Strip, the winds were favoring them. Take a look at the size of the kites there in the wall. Videos show that the losses due to fires take away occupation forces of Israel. Kites only cost 10 shekels, but the cost of this is the loss of billions of dollars and shekels. This is a way of acting against the illegal occupation of Palestinian territories. Around 100 kites were produced as an experiment. Some of them reached Israel while others didn't. But the people in Gaza continue trying to send more. This one's wearing a mask, the other one a kufiyeh. They are all trying to hide their faces, however, providing their statement. He said, this started with rebellious adolescents. It has nothing to do with official political organizations. As long as there's an illegal occupation of Israel in Gaza, in our territory, these kites will be sent daily until the occupation is away and they comply with our needs. We will then watch authorities, the Minister of Housing and Construction, Yoav Galan, who will speak to journalists and will speak about this new and apparently very fruitful way of working with crab dams hanging from giant kites. And as the wind is going towards Israel, Palestinians use it to burn their fields and their grounds as well. The tails and fires, you can see. This is the Minister of Housing and Construction, Yoav Galan. We will get through this with the efforts of intelligence and technology for operations. This is the base on which we'll overcome this problem with the effort for this. And then we'll also listen to a farmer. We'll get through this with the efforts of intelligence and also with technology. Then, Villa Bahar says this field, that's part of the Bieri kibbutz, the situation and the result is frustrating. Take a look at everything that has been burned. We've been following these fires for over a month. But this is a different kind of terrorism, just like any other kind of terrorism, burning the fields. Palestinians continue sending kites with flammable devices. They set them on fire and then send them to their territories. This field belongs to Be'eri kibbutz, as he mentioned. Firefighters then also working, but you have to bring water in tanks. The story behind this is that Palestinians are sending kites to the forest in a new tactic to the unique defying of the army that has rendered useless the army against Palestinians. Now, there are different appreciations to this. Now, this is Turkey, where Kurdish militants living in Syria will be disarmed, according to Mevlut Cavusoglu, Turkish minister. In a press conference with journalists taking notes, the Minister of the Interior mentioned the first step is for members of the IPG and PKK to abandon this area. Then the weapons were taken. We will disarm them, and where will they go? They will go east. We'll not allow them to stay. Threats against us come from the east of the river. The real threat for Turkey comes from members of PKK, IPG, PID that have been already published and are confirmed in the east of the river, so the roadmap will be implemented here after Manbij, and some people will follow our statements, and this roadmap will be implemented in other areas controlled by IPG. Mevlut Cavusoglu mentioned, we are stating this clear. The preliminary meeting will last between 1 and 10 days. This process will not be longer than 6 months, will not be stuck, and this roadmap will only fail if Turkey or the United States have decided to approve this, but decided to take a step back. In the meantime, he was mentioning something against the United States. Then he answered, no, I did not get this impression. This promise wasn't made. What we told Mike Pompeo, Secretary of the United States, who was director of the CIA, you, who know better the connection between PKK and the militants of IPG, you know them better than anyone. So do what you have to do. The Kurdish militia will retreat from the Syrian city, but things aren't changing. From North Korea, they are willing to be disarmed from nuclear weapons to stay in power. That's the proposal of Kim Jong-un. Take a look at the nuclear power they have. However, they're at the level of circumstances because the United States won World War II, but then they retreated against North Korea. Here at the Blata, speaking in the Security Council of the UN to speak about the situation in North Korea, there was a voting in place, and Yang mentioned if the pressure and international sanctions on North Korea continue for the following 5 years, then North Korea will suffer greatly due to this. North Koreans now have higher expectations about increasing their life quality and economic development. This will make them very hard to please. As you can see, North Korea, it's not as terrible as we listen. They have procurement capacity, they have supply, even though things are not fully essential. And Professor Hamon Ying said, North Korea could ensure a regime against the defiance of the United States with nuclear weapons. However, if the residents of North Korea pressure the regime, the program of nuclear weapons will not be enough to guarantee the continuity of the regime in the country. This is well known by Kim Jong-un. This is the nuclear laboratory. It is similar to the one of IBIC. Here what we can see in the pool. I remember now Fernandez Moran. Very proud of him we are. And here the manager of the Strategic Center for Unification in the Research Institute of Korea for National Strategy, Bang Chung-moon, mentioned North Korea must hold conversations to comply with their purposes. That's why North Korea has taken an attitude after Trump canceled the summit. North Korea will not accept the CVAD, the fully dismantling that is irreversible. We cannot expect for the summit to be successful, even though it could take place. Nuclear material in nuclear sites and some ways used for destruction. These are tests of demolition bullets. Non-nuclear materials were transferred. That's why they're dismantling nuclear site to Pyongyang B, so there will be a nuclear disarmament as a nuclear state. We must be aware that North Korea could consider the summit as talks for nuclear disarming with the United States instead of speak about denuclearization. Singapore. It's incredible to see the growth of these people. Unforgettable. Singapore's flag. This is Marina Bay. Incredible. If you ever fly with Singapore Airlines, you will know what a magic carpet is. Kim Jong-un could seek to abandon his nuclear power to stay in power, according to political observers, based on the meeting that will take place in Singapore on July 12. After a year full of rhetoric and recent statements, experts mentioned that people in North Korea now have great expectations for economic development. If North Koreans pressure Kim's regime, the nuclear weapon program will not be enough to guarantee the regime in the country, and Kim Jong-un is aware of this. However, Moon Jae-in, expert of North Korea, now this is an exchange. The manager of India shows an exchange between the Chinese and Indian peoples. This is La Bharati University. Dr. Abhilab Baneri mentions that the tongue and culture of China in this university must be important and everyone should learn Chinese. He reads Chinese every day, he speaks to his Chinese friends, he watches Chinese shows. He enjoys studying this, and I am very proud of this, they say, those receiving these awards in this big competition where they are demanded or encouraged to learn Chinese language. Dr. Abhijay Banerjee, Director of the Department of Language and Culture of China of the University of Bharata, mentioned the exchange of people set a strong foundation to create a strong link between both countries. The youth of both countries today must learn about the other, one from the other, and visit the other nation. This is the communication for education, as well as political exchange. We must work together in order to find ways of improving our relationships. Tagore visited China 9 decades ago and then invited Tang Yongshun to teach in this university. In 1937, he became the first director of China, Brahmbana, where students and academics were learning and investigating about Indian culture. This is Tagore, the one who we were speaking about. Banerjee mentioned that China, Mahabharata, has followed the tradition of exchange between India and China, and many of its students are friends of China. One of them earned the first award of a Chinese competition in India. In the meantime, Vladimir Putin, President of Russia, mentions that the OPEC efforts have been good for oil prices. Interesting. However, OPEC was created by Venezuela. Vladimir Putin and Abu Dhabi, with Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Prince of the Crown of the United Arab Emirates, were there for the pictures, and the President mentioned our joint efforts, including the ones of our friends from Saudi Arabia and OPEC, have shown good results for stabilizing the hydrocarbon market. Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed of United Arab Emirates mentioned, Emirates are always willing to work in the international community with their friends to ensure a promising future for the Middle East. Our joint efforts, including the ones from our friends of Saudi Arabia and OPEC, have shown good results for stabilizing the hydrocarbon market. Putin arrives at Vienna to visit Western Europe. Guard of Honor, Vladimir Putin, President of Russia, arriving and being welcomed by Van der Bellen, both of them shaking hands, military honors. Walking down the Guard of Honor. You can listen to all the helicopters that include all security measures. Putin was emotive after listening to his anthem. And this is the anthem of the country he's visiting. Red carpet, and then walking down. This is important because Vladimir Putin, who did not visit a bilateral did not hold a bilateral meeting since Finland last year will meet with other members to Austria after the energy signature of Gazprom and OMV. This is an agreement for gas supply. Putin will meet with Alexander van der Belt and Sebastian Kurz, President and Chancellor of Austria, and will also speak in the Chamber of Commerce of this country. It is important when we understand where he comes from and how Russia is evolving towards the West. The links between Moscow and European countries are still tense after Crimea and Russia and their participation in Syria and the east of Ukraine, and the poisoning of formidable agent of Russia in Great Britain. London has blamed the neurotoxic agent on Sergei Skripal and his daughter, but Moscow has denied all participation. Now, Kurz, Chancellor of Austria, Sebastian Kurz mentioned Russia as a superpower will have a very important role in Syria, and Russia has a great responsibility. We hope they will carry out the responsibility for peace to be the most important element. I wouldn't exaggerate if mentioning that Russia and Austria contribute to the energy security of all Europe. We work jointly to widen our cooperation for energy. It is a very clear situation in the events transpiring in this part of Europe. Putin and Kurz, in a joint press conference where they spoke about the relationship between Austria and Russia and the events developing in the Middle East and the east of Ukraine. Putin mentioned that every party has an interest in raising sanctions against Russia. This is Alexander van der Bellen arriving at the bilateral conference. All the actions called sanctions are harmful both for the one imposing them and the ones receiving them. So we all want to avoid them. He mentioned Russia has overcome all difficulties related to foreign problems. It wasn't easy some years ago because the slide of prices was very significant for traditional export products. However, we don't only keep a macroeconomic stability, but we also strengthen our economy. Putin and van der Bellen leaving the conference. When spoken about the sanctions the European Union imposed to Russia, he said that they were protectionist measures that are also harmful for the other party. Countries that integrate the European Union discuss migration regulation based on the opposition. Commissioner of Migration, Dimitris Avramopoulos of the EU, mentioned migration will be a part of our life during our following years, so we must be prepared. This is the moment to take our responsibilities and share them, as well as show our solidarity not only amongst ourselves, but also with these desperate people. This will be a very interesting debate. I'm looking forward to it and will request the member state and ministers to contribute to our internal dialogue to reach our main objective, which is finally adopting and having a viable asylum system for Europe. This is the Convention Center of Europe, outside the building. And then he said, as you are aware, we try to avoid becoming part of internal affairs of member states. But Italy is one of the most important countries, and European citizens need more help for this. Flags of the member states of the European Union in the European Center for Conventions. Stefan Meyer, Secretary of the Interior, who mentioned there isn't only criticism in Italy, but in many countries related to this. And also, in the south of Europe, the current federal government of Germany criticized specific points, specifically Dublin and the regulation.
In the Dublin form regulation.
Then, Franken from Belgium, the Secretary of State of Migration. When we first closed the gateway, we will do so and we'll find a commitment. But first we need to fix the gateway and also fix the back door. Then we'll create a commitment about who is doing what. And when we don't have a solution to the massive inflow of illegal foreigners in Europe, then we will never be able to leave this crisis. European Convention Center, flags of the member states. Leo Frankel, Secretary of State of Migration. We don't want more open doors. We don't want this anymore. Enough is enough. People say, that's it. This is what Italians have said, basta così. The same thing is mentioned by Austrians, Germans. We cannot continue welcoming people. Convention Center, Presidency of Bulgaria has shown a lot of ambition. I'm sure that Europe requires commitment, but we are expecting right-wing elections in Europe, so there is a commitment today.
A compromise today.
Security staff. It's a very difficult environment, a very difficult political environment in Europe. This is what I can say right now. I have to go to the meeting. Thank you. Luxembourg Migration Minister of Asylum, Jan Selvorm, who said, we will have a commitment before Easter. However, I know which year. Before Easter, but I didn't know which year. The outside of the building, expecting the ministers that met in Luxembourg on June 5th to speak about asylum in Europe. But it seemed difficult to keep a commitment or compromise for asylum. Now there's Italy, where the greatest number of migrants comes, a magnificent piece of architecture that has nothing to do with the dramatic reality that immigrants are facing. All these powers that wanted to do a lot of things, however, that have many, many issues related to Africa, and now that Africans want to go to Europe, the last they could do would be to open their doors. However, they do the opposite. The information I see on my satellite screen shows nothing new. If not, we'll let you know. We're going to have a short commercial break and we'll be back with more events in full development. Stay where you are. We're back with more events in full development. We're going to speak about Bravo Eco, the 30th cruise for training with its operational activities, based on the 30th cruise ship sailing on latitude 2703 south, longitude east. Let's take a look. So this is where it is. The crew changed, as we mentioned, and now it is headed towards Antofagasta to 50505. Academic activities have started for cadets that recently boarded the ship in Valparaiso, providing instruction about the following: astronomic navigation, Navy crafts, following the study plan Simón Bolívar. Conditions: wind up to 15-20 knots, up to 23, waves 1.8 meters, good visibility. Culebrilla, that's a small piece of rope next to the ship. Juan Fernández, captain. Frachel Arandia, captain of the Navy, chief in command. So we're all going forward, as you can see, because we have some statements we're going to share with you. So let's take a look at the event in full development. Best of luck for Bravo Econs, our ambassador without borders. What we see today is part of the news that we just got as information. Missiles from Yemen hitting a Saudi oil port in the Red Sea. As a retaliation, the missile attack of Yemen attacked with a ballistic missile the oil port in the west of Saudi Arabia. According to Al Masirat, the Yemen network, the Yemenis army, with the forces of Absalom, fired Burkan H2 Vulcan to the Yambu city in the west of the Saudi kingdom in the Red Sea. About this event, we do not have plenty of images yet. However, the ones that we are getting are the ones coming from the place. This attack has already killed at least 9 people and dozens of wounded in the civil population. Since March, the Saudi regime are carrying out an army campaign against Yemen in order to restore Abi Mansur Hadi, president, and go to Ansarallah. But due to this situation, we haven't been able to progress. The Senator of the United States meets with the President of Cuba. This is in Havana, Cuba. Miguel Díaz-Canel, President of Cuba, with Senator Jeff Flake, former manager of Google, and also of Eric Schmidt. Díaz-Canel, now with Flake Schmidt today, member of Google and Alphabet. Some very interesting guests. But take a look at this. 50 years after Robert Kennedy was murdered, the Kennedys were going to change history. They had everything, even money, so they couldn't be put out. They were also Catholic, so they were outsiders. They were in Protestant whites. These are the images back then, and how they're taken out of the way, the ones that were going to be in power. Senator Robert Kennedy. We must create a society where American blacks are just as free as the rest of the Americans, free to vote, to learn, to earn an award, and participate in the decisions of the government that also shape their lives. Achieving this goal will mean a great distinction. There will also be conflicts and problems for all of us, both in North and the South, but we know that we must progress, not because we will provide economic advantages, not because the law mandates so, but because it's a fundamental reason, it's a correct thing to do. Senate with Kennedy, these were the campaigns. They knew that they had charisma and money. They were going to be independent and Catholic, not Protestant. And they couldn't be bribed because they had everything. Shiran, the murderer of Senator Robert Kennedy. So there wasn't a way to stop them. And what did they have? A Kennedy dynasty, Sirhan there, in the state prison of the state of California. This is a picture of Sirhan. Members of his family with Heather Kennedy there as well. When will we know the real story behind this?
In the unity of the Holy Spirit.
Catholic as well. Establishment didn't want anything to do with this. Shirhan, born in Palestine, is serving life in prison for shooting Kennedy in the Ambassador Hotel in 1968. He who was after his brother, who was also murdered. This happened minutes after the senator for New York and former Judge Attorney of the United States. What a great general attorney he was against corruption. After his speech, he was killed. This is how they ended the way to change history in the United States. Guatemala, mourning the victims due to the eruption of the volcano. Zacatepec, Guatemala, victims of the volcano, the family of the victims, mourning the dead with rescuers, coffins of the victims, hugging the rescuers, the people that were taking them, people carrying coffins, people down the streets carrying flowers. The funeral of the first group of victims due to volcano took place in the Rotenango Square, a municipality of Zacatepec, Guatemala. The silence of the square was broken by the mourning of the family of those who sadly passed due to the volcano. There were metal crosses as well as baskets to gather funds to help the families that have been left without anything. People killed due to the volcano magma that exploded on Sunday, who died due to asphyxiation, a terrible way to die. Thousands of people attended the ceremony. Victims were buried in the local cemetery. Bands playing funeral songs. Rescuers trying to get more survivors if possible, identifying more victims among the dead under the debris. The eruption of the Fuego volcano of Guatemala left 69 people dead, 300 wounded, and around 2 million people affected, and a specified number of disappearances. People ran away. Eruption of the volcano in Guatemala, 69 people dead, 300 wounded, 2,000 people affected, 2 million people affected. Powerful eruption. Helicopter flying for the rescue mission. People fleeing. Take a look at the magma flowing with brutal temperatures, of course. Rescuers said there are never enough. The eruption of the Fuego volcano, as we mentioned, left 69 people dead confirmed so far, 300 wounded and 2 million people affected, as well as an undefined number of disappearances, according to the National Coordinator of reduction risk. Jimmy Morales, president, requested inhabitants to keep calm in the visit of affected areas. According to the firefighters, many bodies were found under tons of ash and debris in one of the most affected areas. Rescuers used their hands and some shovels to raise the ceilings, searching for survivors. Ceilings of houses made of aluminum, and together with the people, also birds were buried. This is a dramatic aerial take. A new explosion suspended the search works. The National Institution for Meteorology and Hydrology announced the volcano was coming back to normal, but also mentioned that gorges up to 60-meter deep are full of volcanic material, and rains could lead to a pyroclastic inflow, very dangerous. Rajoy leaves the Popular Party. The Popular Party will continue progressing and building the history of service to the Spaniards under the leadership of someone else. I do this due to two reasons. First is the best for me and for the Popular Party. Or, said in a different way, is the best for the Popular Party and for me. And I also believe it's the best for Spain. The rest doesn't matter. That's why I want to celebrate a national meeting for an extraordinary Congress that will open a new stage in our party with a new directorate and with more illusion than ever. I will fulfill my mandate as president of the Popular Party until the day when the person after me is elected. Provided the events that I'm facing, I will do so with the intervention required. I will not create any changes in the party or the parliamentary groups or any other place, because I reckon that this should be in charge of the next president of the party. Thank you for allowing me to express my decision. I have been in politics for a long time, and I understand how to appreciate your respect. I'm also aware of the loyalty given to me by all of you until the last day. It's been a pleasure. Judge Pablo Llarena. Well, in the meantime, Puigdemont demands a judge for the independent cause, with his 4 former councillors have a civil demand for vulneration of the rights against the civil justice with Judge Pablo Llarena. 9 people are in jail, while others are exiled. This has been announced by 4 ex-members of the Generalitat, particularly those in Brussels, Toricamin, Marcel, and Luis Puig, who had also been added to this event, with Clara Ponsati, who's now in Scotland, and Carlos Puigdemont, who is in Berlin right now. They have announced this, a civil claim demand against Llarena, because they consider that they cannot be subject to a trial in Spain with all the guarantees provided. There's an ideology behind this, and they're also prosecuted due to political reasons. However, if they were in Belgium, they have the conviction and security of having the assurance of all their rights. The second part of all the rights when defending themselves against the claims against them. Additionally, they have requested to go against Judge Llarena. So if there's any open cause against Belgian justice, that has already happened since now, the defense of independentists have mentioned that Judge Arena cannot be in front of the Supreme Court with this cause against independentism. Government and Nicaraguan families still call for dialogue. Nicaraguan families expressed their decision to live in a peaceful country. The government of Nicaragua calls dialogue as the only means to get peace and to stop shedding more blood in the country, which has taken place since April 18th due to the wave of violence in charge of criminal groups and due to the right wing. These are the last images that have been brought from there. The Vice President of Nicaragua, José Murillo, highlighted that it's necessary to reinstate the right to peace, life, study, and health, because there are fundamental rights that have been broken by the new violent acts. We claim for peace, we claim for family, to preserve our values. Big forest fires in the disaster area of Chernobyl. Different vehicles and firefighters, as well as planes, have been deployed to Chernobyl due to a forest fire. This is the last real picture that we received. The authorities estimate that 10 hectares of the area of Ukraine are on fire. According to a statement of the services, this started after the dried grassland were set on fire. We don't know what's the cause behind this, but local authorities state that radiation levels, let us remember that this is Chernobyl, are still normal. We don't know if this normal is for them or for us, and current winds aren't a risk for contamination in Kiev. The exclusion area of Chernobyl also suffered a fire in June last year that took 25 hectares of ground. Friendly match between Argentina and Israel is suspended. The Argentinian media mentioned there have been government meetings to assess the suspension of international match that finally was suspended on Tuesday. The AFA, Association of Argentinian Football, announced on Tuesday the suspension of the match between Argentina and Israel to take place in Jerusalem due to the dispute of land between Palestine and Israel. The FAF decided to suspend the match, and Jorge Sampaoli, boss of the Argentinian national team, will have to pick a new team to have a friendly against. José Alevando mentioned that this match would be like celebrating the anniversary of the Falkland occupation. This would be an aggression to the feeling of the Argentinian people. So you can interpret our feelings due to this. Political Bureau of the Nationalist Social Syrian Party congratulated the triumph of the Bolivarian Revolution. The Embassy of the Bolivarian Revolution of Venezuela in the Syrian Republic was visited by the Political Bureau of the Social Syrian Nationalist Party by the President Safwan Saman and presence of Tarek Al-Ahmadi from the Foreign Affairs Department and other members of the Bureau, in order to congratulate the people and the government of the Republic of Venezuela for the great victory of Nicolás Maduro Moro's president in the elections of May 20th. Evo Morales Ayma mentioned the first intervention of the OAS as the diplomacy of the United States. Former Director Mike Pompeo demanded suspension and isolation of Venezuela with new sanctions. We are against the attack of the empire against the security and sovereignty of Venezuela. Go Venezuela, go Maduro. Interesting, the words from Evo. We have two statements. Listen to this. Venezuela expressed their solidarity with the Guatemalan people after the eruption of the Fuego volcano. President of the Republic of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, on behalf of the people and the government of Venezuela, expresses, according to the statement, a word of solidarity to the people and government of Guatemala due to the effects of the eruption of the Fuego volcano that took place yesterday that affected departments of this country, amongst them Zacatepeques, Antigua Guatemala, and Agotenango. This took place on June 13. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela is saddened by this event that has already killed at least 25 Guatemalans and also had led to a lot of problems, a lot of fear in the population. The government provides the rescuers and specialized teams that are ready for any request of the Guatemalan government to provide relief to all the needs that they could express. The government of the Republic of Venezuela, following their policy of solidarity, reaffirms the government of Guatemala all the support required, and the government will continue following up this difficult situation, ready to provide relief to the victims and continue with reconstruction and rescue works. We have another statement. A statement of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela that will continue defending the sovereign rights over Essequiba, Guyana. The Ministry of Popular Power for Foreign Affairs speaks to the international community and the people that on June 4, 2018, received a statement by the International Justice Court informing that the President of the Court will meet with the representatives of the Venezuelan Republic and the Guyana Cooperative Republic in order to know the points of view of the parties about the matters and issues. Based on this, the government of the Republic of Venezuela, faithful to its historical position and according to the Bolivarian diplomacy of peace, reaffirms its disposition to defend the territorial integrity of our nation based on the Geneva Agreement of 1966, the legal framework on Essequibo. Venezuela will exercise all the actions for the diplomatic, legal, and political instances corresponding to this, providing a higher interest on the national needs and the needs and rights of the Venezuelan people on Guyana Essequiba. The government of the Republic of Venezuela will continue defending the sovereign rights on Guyana Essequiba and calls national union to protect the sacred interest of peace. The son of Venezuela is born in Essequibo. This is the war shout of our troops in Essequibo. Caracas, July 5th, 2018. Anything else to add? Well, these are the last two statements that we just got. So, here the empire is now trying to set their consequences. Some people are still willing to be sold to the empires, as some of our brothers dropping their trusts with 7 bases, granting the sovereignty of their air, land, and sea, and look for a tiny bit of the bounty of the strategic reserve of the whole world that is located in our land. Well, this is what they do. In any case, I would like to salute the 6 million of Colombians living in Venezuela. Why are they here? Maybe because we aren't generous. We don't give them free computers, free books, and free education and health to Colombian children. This would never happen in that country, and we treat them as brothers. We hope that they behave as such. And even in strategic areas, as communication, there are Colombians. And now, based on security, this is not applicable, not because there are Colombians, nor in Venezuela, nor in any other country that is trying to preserve emphatically their sovereignty. But the media are the theater of operation that is in parallel to the real theater. That means real conflicts, and these wars must be won both with the operations and the media. This is very important to bear in mind and to acknowledge who should be given what. From Studio 3 of Venezolana Televisión, here I close Dossier, two-year program of the Western Hemisphere of International Satellite Information. This was Walter Martinez, host and producer, wherever you may be. Thank you for allowing us to be there with you. Director, the floor is all yours.
The ruling